Welcome. It's nice seeing some new faces and lots of well-loved, known faces. So, what I want to talk about today, some of you may have heard that we had Jetsun Tenzin Palmo come to Canberra a few weeks ago. So, Tenzin Palmo, for those that haven't heard, is an English nun. So, she was born in England, and when she was 18, she went across to India or Tibet to become a nun. And what's so inspirational and what I find helpful with Tenzin Palmo is she's just that little bit more relatable, and the examples that she gave over the weekend, lots of us that were there were just sort of so many aha moments and like, oh, that makes so much more sense, why didn't I think of it that way? So what I've done is I've compiled a list of so it's mainly a list of analogies that I'm going to share with you, which will hopefully get you to think about how your mind works and how your emotions and behaviours work, and when you're in different situations, hopefully one or more of the analogies will kind of pop to mind and you'll be like, oh, am I being the chocolate cake, am I being the chicken, am I being the river? So you get to hear about those in a second. So so what she taught on was Atisha's root verses of trading the mind, and there are 21 verses. But they're quite bland to look at. So I haven't brought a handout, but you can Google those later if you are intrigued. And so I guess the first bit that kind of come across for me was how Tenzin Palmo talked about how people come to the Dharma, and I thought that would be a good place to start, because by all of us being here today, we've come to the Dharma for different reasons. And something that I thought was really beautiful, Tenzin explained that, so she actually runs a monastery in India, and which she's the only Western nun to be given that honour, which is pretty, so just how wonderful she is. And she said that she spends most of her afternoons doing meet and greets with travellers. And what she said was that the travellers often come, and what she hears the most is, I've found the Dharma and I've come all this way because something significant happened in my life. And it kind of made me realise that, it's the same story for me. Something major happened in my life. I nearly lost my vision and lost control of my mind, really anxious and stressed, and I was like, wait, there's got to be a better way. And what she said is that every day she hears people have had a near-death experience themselves, or they've lost a loved one, they've lost their partner or their children or their parent, or they've had a serious health issue and come this close to death, and then just went, what am I doing? Why am I living the daily grind? Why? What is this? What is this world? What am I doing? And I guess I wanted you to reflect for a moment on what's brought you to the Dharma, and what do you consider when you sit in these teachings and these meditations, and then you go back into your daily world. And what we mean, and why that explanation was so important, is because we often hear about the Buddha saying that we need to be awakened, or at the beginning, or today at the end, because I forgot to do it at the beginning, we talked about wanting to be enlightened, and what does enlightened mean? And what it can mean is being awakened. And so here's perfect example number one. So Tenzin Palmo taught us about our dream state. And you might have heard Buddhists say that that people generally walk around in a dream state. And if you're not dreaming, you're awake, right? So that's why, so how do we become awakened? So I want you all just to close your eyes, and I want you to take yourself back to a time that you were dreaming. So picture a dream and think about what was happening. Did your body think that you were in the dream? Were you running? Were you afraid? Were you excited? Can you remember that dream? And I want you to think of when you woke up from that dream. What was your body like? Just for a few moments, did your body think, oh, holy shit, I was actually in that dream? Oh, was I? No, wait, I'm in bed. And then, what did your mind do? How long did you hold on to that dream for? If it was so frightening, so intense, did you have to tell yourself that it was only a dream? And that you're okay and that you're safe? Or if you met a loved one in your dream, did you have to wait a moment and go, it was only a dream? And by reflecting on our dreams, we can see just how much of that feels real. And that's why the Buddha and the Buddhist teachings are trying to tell us that what we dream when we're lying in bed asleep, our mind and body don't know that it's not real. And if we're not aware of what's happening during the day, our mind and body will just let our thoughts take over. And it's when our thoughts are taking over that we're in the dream state and that we're not actually awakened. So the Buddha explains that the way most humans live life is like a dream. And that's because our mind perceives that things are real by attaching thoughts and emotions to them. And it tells us that everything's happening to us or against us. But if we actually took a step back and observed our life like a dream, would we be so caught up in it? Or would we actually start to be awake to what's actually happening around us? I like that one. So the rest of the whole weekend was totally mind. Everything was about the mind, because really we are our mind. And I thought a really good bit to share with you is how, it's like, okay, well, don't be in this dream state. How can I not be in this dream state? So she gave 3 simple steps, which is tame the mind first, then we can train the mind, and then we can transcend the mind. Though we only really talked about the first 2. So the first bit I wanted to talk about was the monkey mind. So I don't know if you guys have done or read Lama Chodak's book, Taming the Elephant Mind. Yeah. So when you do the 8-week Karma Abiding course, which we run every term, you follow this book, which is really good. So in it, we talk about the monkey mind. And I know that I always hear the monkey mind and I kind of just figured it meant a scattered mind. But when listening to Tenzin talk about it, I was like, of course. So, picture a monkey in the, when the Buddha first coined the term monkey mind, he literally meant like a monkey. So when you're all frazzled, you are kind of like a monkey, so monkeys are in the bush and they're fighting, they're copulating, they're jumping around, they're restless, they take a bit of fruit from one tree, have a bite, throw it away because they can see the next bit of fruit, or they see other monkeys eating fruit and they want that fruit. They're hungry for desire and pleasure, they're just continually more. And I was like, that is, when we're not in control of our mind, that's us. We are literally monkeys. And so keep that in mind. And then another thing that she talked about was, well, once you have your monkey mind and you've identified it, how do you tame it? And that's I know, it's in the book. But the great bit that she kind of sums it up with that I'd forgotten about was taming the elephant. The reason that they say the elephant mind is because the elephant's one of the hardest animals to tame in the wild, and so our mind is so active, and it wants to be in control, and it wants all the thoughts going through. So if you're going to be harsh with an elephant and try to beat it into submission, it's just going to attack you and it's going to fight you like your mind will. But if you befriend the elephant and start teaching it gently and quietly and be compassionate and kind to the elephant like you would with your mind, then you can actually start to tame it. Your mind will trust you and just give you little snippets of quietness. And that, which I was very excited to hear, we tame our mind through calm abiding, which is the meditation that I led you through, and the one that Lama Chodak teaches us in our book. And calm abiding is all about cultivating awareness. So today we started with our posture, but Tenzin Palmo sort of said that a really simple way for people who haven't had the core training would be to start with your breath, because we breathe simply every day, and we breathe without knowing. So your breath is always there, and we can just bring it like we were doing in the meditation. But for those watching on the video, I'll just explain a little bit. So the point of focusing on your breath is just to bring your mind's attention to something. So the mind will wander, but if you've got something to focus on, then that just brings you present just for a moment. And it's about being aware of something and not thinking and thinking and thinking and doing and doing and doing. It's stopping. And by focusing on our breath, we can learn to watch our mind and learn how the mind works. And that's the first step towards training the mind, is taming it and then learning how we think. And something that I loved, that was a couple of bits that she said, which I hope you find interesting. Have you ever noticed that we can't breathe in the present, in the past or the future? That you can only breathe in the present? I was like, that's why you breathe. That's why the breath is such a big thing in meditation, because it's that whole keeping you still. And I love that she used the word ego, because there's such a, the do's and don'ts talk about ego. But really, when we talk in Buddhism about the three poisons of desire, ignorance and anger, they're our behaviours and our thoughts. But if we're actually, which is kind of our ego. And so what Tenzin Palmo said was, did you know that the ego can't actually live in the present moment? The ego can only live in the past or the future. So every time we're focusing in on our breath or our body mindfully, then we're actually being our best self, because we're not worried or stressed about anything. Another great bit she said was, and like the elephant, that meditation is not forcing the mind to be single focused, that you gently do it with the mind, because you can't say, mind, focus now, just do it, because if you get cranky with your mind and you're putting all your pressure in, then you're tense and you're not relaxed. So it was defeating the whole purpose. So the way to go is to leave the mind alone, and don't try and concentrate too hard. Just don't, because that will have repercussions. And don't try and achieve perfection. Just sit and be. And like an animal, if you beat it too much, your mind will turn around and bite you. Which I thought was funny. You can laugh too. No? Okay. Okay, so these are a bit more fun, light-hearted analogies. So she did a couple of analogies about greed, desire, craving, and wanting, and that was to all help us about what our mind is doing. So the Buddha used there's an analogy from the Buddha saying that our mind is like little hooks, and it wants to catch on to everything it can, like catching on to people, possessions, memories, thoughts, feelings, status, titles, job, money, everything. Just catch, 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 catch. And the mind is always grasping, and it's assuming that something out there will satisfy our inner black hole. But does it? Does any of the things that you grasp onto actually satisfy you? Or does it just leave you craving more? Which then led on to the next analogy of salty water. And like greed is like salty water to a thirsty man. It doesn't matter how much salty water you drink, you're still going to want more. So while we're thinking of the house we want, the job we want, the new furniture, the great car, or even just, I want to be better at meditation, I want to sit down and practice more, I want. When we come from the wanting, that's the salty water. Are we ever going to be able to satisfy ourselves? And then she gave some examples of attachment, clinging, and expectations. And I love this one because it was chocolate cake. I was like, yes, we get to talk about chocolate cake. And so I want you to picture yourself and pretend that you're a chocolate cake lover, and you're in the supermarket and you've been dieting all week or something, as long as you can. And you're like, yes, right, I'm going to go get me some chocolate cake. And so you go to the supermarket and there's no chocolate cake. And you look everywhere and there's not even a chocolate cake decent alternative. And what do? So when we have attachment and clinging and expectations, we actually get disappointed that there's no chocolate cake. And we'll be feeling sorry for ourselves. Well, why me? I needed the chocolate cake. Where is it? Where's the chocolate cake when I needed it? Why didn't I come here earlier? And you can start a barrage of thoughts along that way. Or worse, you can even get upset and hold on to that sadness and then go home and be upset that you didn't get your chocolate cake. So the problem is that we're holding on to what we want, as opposed to going, well, you know what, there's no chocolate cake, but there is an apple turnover. Maybe I can have that instead. It's finding something else to satisfy your craving, because it's just, you're not attached to the cake. It was just a treat that you were ready to offer yourself. Or you might even just walk away and go, well, you know what, universe says no chocolate cake today, I'll continue with my diet and go back later. And the great thing with that was that Tenzin Palmo said we're allowed to crave our chocolate cake, and we're allowed to want our chocolate cake. And when we get our chocolate cake, we're allowed to love it and eat just that one piece, not the whole cake. But that Buddhism and desire and attachment isn't about not getting the things that give us that temporary pleasure, but it's about holding on to what happens if we don't get that temporary pleasure. So I like that. I get to enjoy my chocolate cake. So moving on to the next two analogies. Those of you that were there might remember how wonderful it was. She kept holding her hands open when she was talking about attachment and clinging, and it just, like, I don't know, a few of us kind of melted. It was like, oh, this is like, it's so gentle. So hopefully when I go through these analogies, you'll be able to think about things that you kind of attach to and hold on to into your life. So the first one was the analogy of a day-old chick. So imagine you've got a cute little chicken in your hands, and you can hold it, look at it with your hands open, and you're looking, and you can love the chicken, and the chicken can breathe, and the chicken's happy and you're happy, and you can see the chicken and everyone else can see the chicken. But if you think, and sometimes little kids do, get the really, I love the chicken, and you squeeze your hands tight, you're going to suffocate the chicken, and the chicken can't breathe, and the chicken's going to get squished and potentially die. And that kind of showed that how we sometimes treat things in life. If we hold on to them too tightly, you can even see my hands, fingers are going red, you know, like it's not open-hearted, it's not gentle, it's not generous, it's not giving the chicken space to breathe. And then the other analogy with the open hands was like drinking water from a river. So if we're remembering back in when all these texts were written, people drank from rivers because we didn't have plumbing and cups everywhere. So the analogy is that you go down to the river because you're really thirsty and you need a drink. And if you go down and you scoop up the water, and and gently bring it up to your mouth with your hands open, you'll be able to drink the water. But if you're too eager and you go down and you grasp onto the water, the second that you do that holding on, where does the water go? It doesn't stay in your hand. It falls through your fingers and through the space in your palm. So it kind of reminds us that we can still love people and appreciate what we have, like the chicken and the water. However, we can't hold on to them too tightly. And Tenzin Palmo said, which I think we all need little reminders of, attachment says, I love you and I want you to make me happy. But love says, I love you and I want you to be happy, whether it makes me happy or not. And non-attachment opens up the heart to be able to love all sentient beings, not just ourselves.